big data and right data may not quite be the same thing. My impression is banks have the big data, they just need to be able to filter it and interpret it correctly. How can, in your view, banks understand the data?
This is a real interest of mine. I ran a data warehousing software company for a while, and I think big data, I mean, let's talk about data warehousing going back 20 years ago. We felt, hey, let's gather as much information as we can. I think the same path existed back then, where you have raw data, and then you want to analyze the data so it becomes information. And then that becomes analyzed information, which you hope to move to the ultimate place, which is actionable information. I think that's been the challenge. Could we move raw data to actionable information? Actionable information being information made available to the person servicing the customer when he or she is servicing the customer. Not on a monthly basis, not via a report, but really made available. Now big data comes along, which involves tremendous, back to our behavioral analysis. So now you have data coming from social media sources, you have data in far higher degree of granularity, but it still needs to follow that path. So now we have to handle that data, but in the end, the key is, can we bring it to actionable? So the most, I think the most innovative banks we're working with are combining the idea of moving big data to actionable with humans as a service. Now what do I have? I have a human who is properly equipped with information, who's now available to my consumer, independent of which channel my consumer comes to. So it becomes kind of an intelligent omni-channel delivery model. And it works on both sides. Customer sat goes up, and cross-sell ratios and wallet share goes up. So the bank wins and the consumer wins.
And of course, Twitter, Facebook, they are the main social media platforms, and we have seen, you know, since Twitter emerged, people are very keen to voice their opinions on banks on there, but quite a few banks have Twitter platforms with people who respond to their queries instantly. Is that already a good enough business model?
I think, once again, if the goal is to provide the greatest value to your customer base, at the same time meeting your goal of sustained profitable growth, the more information that you can consume and apply, the better. One of the challenges is filtering through information. So part of the early phases of social media and financial services for many firms was a source for customers to complain, candidly. And that was challenging initially because it wasn't necessarily going to help with cross-sell ratios and so forth. But then we learned, okay, now we have a great mechanism to learn and to improve on. And now you see some very progressive institutions responding back and saying, look, we took this Facebook information, we took this Twitter information, we've improved our operations, and now they're using that as a basis to introduce offers and other approaches. But it has to be personal, and I think that's one of the challenges.
And how does big data, or this filtering of the right kind of data for that particular moment when a customer walks into a branch and has a particular query, how does that exactly work, actually?
Yeah, so let's take a combined balance profile where you understand the customer. So you understand the customer's deposit, loan, overall banking relationship, their investments. Now, there are some interesting aspects. Some of those relationships might be outside of your institution. So now there's the ability for you to understand the total relationship both with your institution and outside. How do we take that and apply that in real time? There's high performance computing now that will allow for that to occur, whereas as short a time as 10 years ago, it wasn't truly realistic for that computing to take place. So it's really around the customer platform and the employee's platform for servicing the customer. So you might come in and I might have pre-analyzed, not a, hey, there is a certificate of deposit of the month that I want to sell you, but we've analyzed your behavior. We've noticed that you've been looking at a certain kind of loan on the web. You come into the branch and you have a few minutes. Now I can actually talk to you intelligently because that's been analyzed. But more importantly, rather than putting all the onus on the branch employee, I can take you to a place and say, oh, you have a half an hour? Let me introduce an expert to you who can provide answers and advice to you specifically on what you are looking up on the web. Now I've connected your need with an expert, and I'm doing that in real time. In the classic banking model, that would have been impossible. I couldn't staff the branch cost effectively to deliver that. Now, I basically have an expert system out there. I know their availability. That's all made available to me. And it's called Presence. I use it every day. So right now, my colleagues know that I'm actually doing this and I'm not available. So let's take Presence and introduce it to our experts. Let's make it available. Let's get them the proper information. So when you come in, wherever you come in, by the way, it doesn't have to be a branch, it could be online. Click to collaborate, and you click on it. Next thing you know, someone's popping up, and they're having a conversation with you, and it's about you. It's not about a generic offer of the bank. So it's an exciting road of marrying big data, analytics, collaboration to deliver this human as a service environment.
And when we take collaboration opportunities, I mean, you know, of course, there would be opportunities to, for banks to partner with, you know, the likes of Cisco. Is there any opportunity or reason for banks to actually also partner with each other, perhaps share data if a customer has 2 bank accounts, for instance?
Yeah, I think the consortium model, which is really what you're talking about, has been out there. And I think it's going to take a time to mature. The idea of banks working together to, in a sense, share information, share best practices. I can definitely see that taking place, but of course there's always the competitive risk of how do we differentiate ourselves. So I'd have to say that one I think is going to be a bit down the road.
Okay.
But it's exciting right now as you see this change. So, you know, that's why when people say, what's this about? I say it's basically putting humans in the cloud.
I see.
And when you put humans in the cloud, that sounds a little odd, but what is the whole concept of cloud is being able to dynamically get the resource you need when you need it. Well, this is now, you know, dynamically gaining expertise when you need it, where you need it.
Paul, to wrap up, what's your outlook for the industry with you know, the HaaS model emerging and big data becoming more and more crucial?
I really think there are going to be some evolving financial institutions, and because this is somewhat borderless, a financial institution that may not have the biggest footprint in a given marketplace may actually show up and start delivering this service. I think because this is not a technology limitation today. So every technology I'm talking about is available today. This is more of a business model change. So I think the outlook is actually quite positive for the classic retail financial institution in their ability to deliver a better service, a service we've talked about for a long time. We've talked about customer centricity for a long time. Now there's a lot out there that will allow you to do it. I think what will be interesting is will new contenders come into a marketplace, start delivering it, and force that business model change that might be a little more difficult for a more mature bank.
So a lot more encouragement and also a lot more pressure.
A little
Paul,
pressure.
Thanks a lot for coming today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.